What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with companies unveiling the earnings, nothing really crazy. I've seen some posts online saying that GameStop, if they do hit a phenomenal earning, that's going to cause a ripple across kind of a lot of heavily shorted stocks. I've heard that every single quarter, so I don't really think that there's much validity to that. But aside from that, though, I don't really think any of these companies are going to really move the broader market, in my opinion. So this upcoming week is going to be largely linked to technicals as well as data points. So this upcoming week is going to be a pretty big one for the broader market. Not really much coming out on Monday, so it is going to be more linked to technicals as well as more of a reflection on what's been happening. So especially in SoFi's case, I think just people are still really wondering what the hell that whole issuance was all about, what that actually was meant for. Plus, you do also have that kind of push lower that did happen after hours on Friday because, regrettably, SoFi did not get added to the S&P 500. As much as a lot of people were kind of really hopeful on that, I think it wasn't just in the cards. Most likely in the probably second half of 2026. That's probably when it will actually occur, in my opinion. But again, what do I know? So again, the market kind of pushed a little bit lower because of that. But like I said, the data points, this is what's going to move SoFi. So for instance, on Tuesday, we have ADP employment. So last time it did come in at negative 13,000. Then we also do have JOLT numbers on Tuesday. So given the next day on December the 10th, that's when we're going to have an interest rate decision. A lot of these data points, so the JOLT and ADP, that's going to really impact the market's perception of January. So what potentially could happen for that time. But for the December 10th, so on Wednesday, that one's going to be the big deal for the market. So we do have most likely a 25 basis point cut coming down the pipeline. Currently, there is a roughly, I think it's 86.2% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut. So again, I think the market's already somewhat priced that in. So don't anticipate any crazy rally because of this. But what Powell says afterwards, and if he alludes to, let's say, a January cut, so January 28th, then you could see maybe the market move higher because of that. Currently, the market's anticipating a following 25 basis point cut and roughly around a 24.8% likelihood of that occurring. So at the end of the day, that's what's really going to move the broader market. Aside from that, Thursday we have initial jobless claims, and then Friday just a lot of Fed speakers. So that's going to be the big deal for the broader market. Aside from that, there really isn't anything planned associated to SoFi. I think a lot of the major bulls are kind of under the impression that there's going to be some big merger announcement. Most likely not. I think the issuance that did happen, as I mentioned on my Friday video, was very similar to 2023. It's just the company building a stronger moat for themselves just in case of, let's say, a larger pullback. So it's, I think, good if you do believe in the company and you want a stronger balance sheet. That's exactly what you need. You need a lot of capital. So that's just my opinion, of course. The only other thing that kind of came out was this right here. So Percent said early this morning that we will finish the year with 3% GDP growth. And as of right now, it looks like the current forecast is 3.2. So I don't know how the market is going to really interpret that, whether that is going to be a positive. Some of the comments seem to be very much assuming that's a good thing. So we'll have to kind of wait and see how the market does, and especially the overnight trading, how that kind of does work out. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Regarding shorts, so going into this upcoming week, we are sitting at 10.16% of the free floats being shorted. Works to be 118.9 million shares overall are being shorted. For those of you that tuned in, I think earlier on last week, there was a brief period where they kind of signaled that there was some naked shorting happening with SoFi. Very odd, but it did show that the shares on loan were less than the number of shares being shorted. That has since rectified itself. So again, you don't have that crazy manipulation happening. On Friday, though, shorts did increase 505,000 shares. Looking at the options from a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that $29 to $30 range. So bulls are feeling like there will be a pretty nice rally, possibly because of Powell. And then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub 26. And based on the technicals, it could go either way. So once I go over that in a second, that'll make a little bit more sense. But looking at the open interest from last Friday, with it closing at 27.78, that does mean that the 27.50 and below strike prices are in the money, but there wasn't really anything of substance. So you won't be seeing any gamma squeeze, anything like that for this upcoming week. If the bulls are accurate and that SoFi is going to close above 30, for instance, then you'll have 16,000 at the 30, 10,000 at the 29, 10,000 at the 28.50. So that would be kind of best case scenario. But aside from that, though, anything below 27.50, you're not going to see anything. So that's going to be some of the key levels to watch for. And for those of you, again, that kind of been following my channel for a while, since it was like SoFi was $8, $7 and give or take, if, let's say, by Friday, SoFi is close to that $30 range, this is where you could see shorts really start to increase just to have it expire worthless, because both market makers and shorts have a financial interest in having most of this kind of expire worthless. But aside from that, though, I know I did my Friday video kind of midway throughout the day. I didn't do a PM video, but we actually did see a lot of institutions selling. So the big ones on Friday, 130 million, that was a sell. You did have a 24.9 million that was a buy, which I did cover in my video because that did happen first thing. But you had a lot of other ones, so 19.1, 18.8, 7.9, all of which did occur after hours. So most likely a lot of institutions were actually selling because of SoFi not getting added. So kind of crazy stuff how many institutions actually did trade SoFi, clearly based on that rumor. Aside from that, these were some of the big ones that did occur after hours on Friday. So nothing too significant. So didn't see any massive ones. So aside from all of that, though, with it closing at 27.78, it is smack dab in the middle between this pivot and this S1. So I'm looking at the 1-day chart. So these are very strong support and resistance points. And in my opinion, one of these is going to be touched by and broken by the end of this week, depending on, again, what Powell says for future guidance and what kind of is coming for 2026. So 25.14, 28.66, and then 32.17 is going to be the next kind of strong support points and also targets. So just anticipate a lot of volatility. But aside from that, though, looking on the actual chart itself, it's not looking too bad. Of course, I think just given the fact that stochastic RSI was relatively overbought, that did attribute to SoFi's kind of very volatile Friday. Plus, again, the market didn't really kind of understand what that whole issuance was about. Aside from that, though, a couple of key points. So that 50-day moving average, best case scenario, which is right now at 28.19, that needs to be hit and broken above early on in the week if you're going to see any sort of meaningful recovery. Aside from that, though, that 100-day moving average, which is sitting at 26.26, that's going to be a good support level. When SoFi's tested this so far, that 100-day moving average, it hasn't been that strong, so I wouldn't really kind of hold my breath on this one. But still, if it does break below that, then this is where you could see a lot of consolidation. So let me know your general thoughts on that in the comments below. As far as the market position, you do see a little bit more willing buyers between that 26 to 26.50 range. So again, I think there is a certain level of kind of anticipation that there's going to be a pullback. So something, again, just to keep in mind. And most likely early on this week, we will see some new analyst ratings as they do digest the issuance. So you might have the same type of bullish/bearish mentality, because Mizuho did downgrade, gave a $38 down to $31 price target. That was done on December the 4th. Then you also had JP Morgan increase their price target to 31 from 24. So we'll have to wait and see how things do play out. But nonetheless, it should be a very fun ride. In my opinion, I do feel sometime throughout the week, we will be kind of consolidating to kind of that mid 25 range. But luckily enough, we will probably move higher because of Powell, and then we will kind of settle closer to this pivot point. So I anticipate a hell of a lot of volatility. So if you're a swing trader, day trader, or you just want a dollar cost average, this will be a good week for you. but nonetheless, I do feel that we will be kind of moving higher. But this week's going to be a big make it or break it week. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Give yourself a shout out if you have been buying, or if you plan on buying at a certain level, let's say sub $25 or $22. Where are you buying next? In my case, I'll probably buy, if it does ever hit that in the foreseeable future, kind of roughly between this S2 and this S3. So between $20 and $22, that's where I feel would be a very good buy. But again, anything could happen in the foreseeable future. So hopefully everyone's having an amazing weekend. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.